Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast, or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. Welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is board game expert and author Erik Arneson. Erik, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Adam. Thanks so much for having me on. This is fantastic.
Oh, man. So I just inhale anything board game related and just, I was at the library and just typed in like board game or whatever into the search thing, and this book popped up called How to Host a Game Night, and I'm like, why not? So I got it. I flew through it. Then I bought my own copy because I'm like, I'm going to need this for reference later. There's so much good stuff in this book. Different types of board game nights based on players, how many people you have, how long is it going to run. But then there's this thing in here called Battleball. And I was like, oh boy. So I had already reached out to you, and I'm like, no, I gotta play Battleball first. So I tracked down a copy of Battleball. My son and I, oh man, we've played it so many times. I introduced it to my friend at my board game weekend that he was in town for, and that game is amazing.
Battleball is this just mysterious delight of kind of futuristic, kind of football, kind of a battle game, kind of looks like it shouldn't work when you take it out of the box and put it together. You think it's just going to be this, kids game kind of thing maybe. And somehow, man, it just works and it is fun every time.
Yeah, and you're right. You take it out of the box and it says Milton Bradley on it, or Hasbro or whatever it was in 2003. And you're right. You're like, oh, this is just going to be a toy. And man, it is mechanically, it is just sound. It is a very solid game. And I think what really drew me to it was that it's lightweight. Yeah. It's not this big, heavy Blood Bowl. It's not, all the minis are pre-painted because I haven't dabbled quite into painting minis yet. I'm trying to hold out as long as I can before I immerse myself in that.
I try to trick my friends into painting minis.
How'd that go for you?
It worked pretty well, actually. I had an old copy of Hero Quest that I really wanted to get painted and play and learn and all that because I had missed out on Hero Quest when I was younger. And I gave it to my friends, Josiah and Aaron. And Aaron is a tremendous painter on figures like that. And I said, look, I'm going to give you this game for free. All you have to do is paint the figures and agree to play it with me a couple of times. So it worked perfectly.
That's a good deal.
That's all I wanted. I only needed to play it a couple times. I didn't figure I'd be playing it forever. So I got to play a really nice painted set. It was great.
Nice. So I guess we should step back a second and you can introduce yourself and what you do for the gaming community.
Sure, yeah. So you already said my name's Erik Arneson. I play a lot of board games, which I'm thankful to the community for making so many great games. It's a fantastic hobby, but we all know that. I wrote for a website called About.com from 1999 until about 2014. I was covering board games and card games for About.com. Right now, I write for the Opinionated Gamers website, which is run by Dale Yu. And also I have two books out. How to Host a Game Night is the newest one, which you've talked about a little bit. And I am thrilled that it introduced at least one other person to the glory of Battleball. And then I have a little ebook out too that's just a collection of public domain pencil and paper games called 17 Games You Can Play Right Now.
Yeah, and I picked that up off of Amazon on my Kindle. So
Thanks.
yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, my son and I were reading that. Like, so a lot of times his bedtime stories, if you will, are board game books.
That's awesome.
So that's it gets us in trouble. We read a lot of them, like the James Lauder books, the Hobby Games 100 Best and Family Games 100 Best. The amount of games that I owned before and own now, that's a huge gap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those books are fantastic and wonderful. I love the essays written by so many great gamers and designers and publishers and everything, but they're dangerous because you always wind up buying more games.
Yeah, yeah. So many. And my son and I keep thinking, man, I should reach out to James and be like, hey, these are kind of out of date now. You might want to write, Hobby Games the 100 Rest and just do a whole other route, because I think they're 5 or 6 years old, and if not more. And I'm like, man, so many games have come out recently that
it's amazing. The internet has just revolutionized the board game industry in so many great ways. Some ways that are more challenging, maybe as well. But the number of incredible, great games that are getting published every year, there's just no way any one person can keep up with it. When I started writing for About.com back in 1999, basically I could play every significant new hobby game that was getting published every year. If you try to do that anymore, it is more than a 40-hour-a-week full-time job. It's impossible. So it is a great time to be a gamer.
It's more than 40 hours just to play the games, let alone do all the write-up.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if I came to your house in Pennsylvania, not a Steelers fan, we'll get to that later, but that's a good thing because Steelers are gross. I don't care if anybody listening thinks they're great. They're not. I grew up in Indianapolis, man. The Steelers always had the Colts number in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Always. So if I came to your house, what game is currently sitting out on your table?
Well, if I know it's you coming to my house, it's Battleball. Right?
No absolutely. Absolutely. Do you play as the Wolves or the Hearts?
Yeah, I'll take either. I've never developed a preference for the Wolves or the Hearts. Either way. But more likely, because every year I have, on the Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday, I host a game day, and we call it the Battleball World Championship because I don't think anybody else has claimed that title. So
I can't imagine, no.
So it's us. We have a trophy every year, so that makes it really super official. So most of the year, probably not playing Battleball because it's a fantastic game and I do love it. But one really full day of Battleball holds me over for a while. So if you came to my house right now, probably there'd be two choices, depending if it was just two players or if there was more. If it's just two players, I'd probably try and talk you into playing Unmatched. Any of the Unmatched sets, I have almost all of them. I don't have Deadpool yet, but I will soon. And if there's
we'll remedy that problem.
That's a problem that's easy to solve. And if there's more of us, I'm going to go with Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Now, I'm assuming the original one, not the Scooby-Doo one.
I have Scooby-Doo. I play tested Scooby-Doo. I'm really looking forward to playing the finished version. I haven't done that yet, but no, the original one. And if we're going to be able to get together multiple sessions, I'm going Legacy. I have an unopened copy of Betrayal Legacy just waiting. I've played through it once, but I'm ready to go again.
Yeah, I haven't really got into the Legacy part. I think it's because a lot of times when I play games, I got like a 90-minute attention span. Once it crosses 90 minutes, even great games, to me, if it gets much longer than 90 minutes, my ADD brain is like, woo.
For me, the legacy thing really only works if I'm playing with great friends. Because we get stories out of it. When Pandemic Legacy Season 1 came out, a couple of us, four of us, played it all in one weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We plowed through Pandemic Legacy Season 1 in one weekend. It was spectacular.
Now, see, maybe something like that, maybe, but my goodness, that's quite a that's quite a feat.
It was. We didn't know if we'd finish when we started, but we were done by mid-afternoon on Sunday. So not too
Ooh,
bad. Loved it.
I bet. So Klaus Teuber's classic game, The Settlers of.
Well, so I work with a guy named Bob Caton, and I don't like Bob very much, so I'm not going to call it Caton. I I go Catan most of the time.
Well, at least it's not Caton. That there are wrong answers, and then there are wronger answers. That might be the most wrong answer out there. Oh man, yeah. So, do you board game at lunch with your coworkers?
I wish I did. I don't. In part because I'm lame. That's what it boils down to. But I usually wind up working through lunch. I do communications for the state treasury in Pennsylvania, and I'm usually, the morning is a bunch of meetings, and by lunchtime I've got requests from reporters or whatever else work I got to get done. So I usually just work through lunch, which I need to stop doing.
Yeah, I worked for a company a long time ago that when you started working through your lunch, they started expecting you to work through your lunch, and I'm like, I'm not ever making that mistake again. So even if all I get's 15 minutes to myself, I'm like, that's my lunch.
Smart.
I'm not gonna give up that.
Yeah, that's smart.
So in a game where you pick colors, do you have a certain color that you gravitate towards?
Well, it is, I think, undisputed in the world that the greatest franchise in all of professional sports is the Green Bay Packers. So I go with green, and if that's not available, I go with yellow.
Oh, green or yellow. You know what? Between those two, you probably are in most games.
Yeah. And in a pinch, their throwback jerseys are blue. I can go blue.
If I have to go way back, I mean,
I'm one of those people. I do play green as often as I can, and when I'm not green, I really have to focus on the fact that I'm not green.
Absolutely, and it's so funny because I was just talking to somebody else, and she plays red, and she's like, I can play almost any color, but I cannot be blue because her significant other is always blue, and so she's been trained to never be blue.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and I find myself like I like red, and I'll play orange. But if I get much past outside of those two colors, yeah, I'll forget what color I am. I'll be strategizing. Ticket to Ride. I'll be I'll be like setting up to do this huge thing, then realize I'm not the yellow trains. I'm the green trains, and everything in my hand is now completely worthless. And there goes half an hour's worth of work.
Yep, been there.
So you're a part owner of the Green Bay Packers.
I am. I bought one share myself, and then when my parents passed away, a share that had belonged to my dad had transferred to my mom, and then that transferred to me too. So now I've doubled up. I own 2 shares. My wife owns 1 share. So between us, we're practically majority.
That's awesome. I read that, and I'm like, that's incredible. I had to know this story. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was basically a $250 donation to the Green Bay Packers Incorporated. But we do get to vote on the board of directors every year. And they actually do have a shareholders meeting every year at Lambeau Field where the team CEO comes out, gives a status update. The coach talks to the fans. Usually they answer some questions, the general manager and stuff. So there's not a lot of there's no financial benefit. Unfortunately, it does not move you up on the season ticket waiting list, but you do get 1 day a year at Lambeau Field if you're able to get out there.
Hey, there you go. That's better than nothing. Aaron Rodgers is going to be solid again this year.
No doubt. I don't know where he's going to play next year, but this year I'm pretty darn confident he's going to have another good year. He and Coach LaFleur seem to really be on the same page with the offense these days.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that off-season malarkey going on, but he's back. I was kind of hoping he would, maybe find his way to Chicago or Indianapolis, but
Yeah.
Indianapolis picked up Carson Wentz, who promptly got hurt. So I'm like, yeah, that checks. That's good job.
Yeah, it's a shame. I want to like Carson Wentz, but he does have a history of injuries.
He has a very long history of injuries.
Yeah.
So if you had a 60-minute lunch hour, what is your go-to 60-minute game?
Well, I am. This is kind of a cheat, so feel free to yell at me if you want to. But I'm going with The Crew. I know you can't complete The Crew in 60 minutes, but I'd work through it over a series of 60-minute sessions. I love playing The Crew. I can sit there. If I'm playing The Crew, 60 minutes just flies by.
Yeah, no, it's solid. It is kind of a legacy type game where you're trying to complete your missions in order and stuff. But yeah, you could definitely complete what, 3, 4?
Yeah. Depending where you are in the, how far along you are, how difficult the missions are, could get in 2, 3, maybe 4 if you're at the very beginning and good.
Yeah, I mean that's not bad. I mean that's a good game. So a 30-minute game, a half hour. What are you pulling there?
This one's a couple years old now, but I still love, and I still have to explore some of the expansions. Sagrada. Great game. Love how things look at the end. It works really well with a wide variety of gamers, which I don't have at the moment. We moved not too terribly long ago, and I haven't settled into a new steady gaming schedule yet. So games that can appeal to a pretty wide group of people help out a lot, and Sagrada is one of those. I've never had a bad time playing Sagrada.
And it's pretty.
It's so pretty.
It is a very pretty game.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've played any of the expansions either. I know I've played the base game a couple times, and it's a very approachable game.
Yeah.
And I think it's the colorful dice, it's the stained glass window piece, that makes it inviting, and it is very pretty and very approachable, and I think that's what kind of helps draw people into that game.
You're so right. I think inviting and approachable are great words for it, and when it's out on the table and other people notice it, they're very likely to say, "What is that you got going on there?" Whereas with a lot of games, if they see Battleball, which I love, which is fantastic, which I think I've rated 10 on Board Game Geek, and if not, I should be ashamed of myself. But people look at that and they'll be like, "Oh, that's robots and monsters and stuff. Not really my thing." But Sagrada just draws in a lot of people.
No, I think the other thing with Battleball that would, to the uninitiated or the hesitant to start board gaming, the 44-inch by 20-inch board that takes up the whole table you're playing on, and in these 22 highly detailed miniatures. It can definitely, when I got it out of the box, and the rule book is just way too big for that small of a game too, and I'm like, how am I ever going to learn this? And then I just read the rules. I'm like, oh, that's it? Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And really, it is a very easy game to teach, very lightweight, with a lot of great strategy on how you move your team down the field. Do you run out and grab the ball with your receiver and then run back and then try to work it down slow? Do you or do you just take the heavy tackle and just plow through the line, and there's a lot, and then anything in between, right?
Yeah, and
So
even
when
the initial setup, you got to be a little bit careful on. You don't want to leave a gap because a couple of 20s and the half is over like that.
I had that happen to me with my son when we were playing. You really have to worry about it when you get to overtime and you've had a lot of serious injuries,
Yeah,
and you're down players, and he ran right. He ran out, grabbed the ball, and on the next rolled like an 18, and he's in my end zone because I didn't have enough players to to shut him off.
yeah. Overtime is dangerous in battle ball, and the field, the size of the field with the 20-sided die, it's just perfectly
Yo, yeah.
proportioned to make it risky and exciting and fun. I mean, they really nailed it with
Oh
that
yeah,
game.
they're super fast, but they're also easy to tackle.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, mechanically, it is so sound.
And nothing is better. Nothing is better in battle ball to me than when you're involved in a tackle with the receiver and it's your receiver, say, and you roll a 1 and knock the other guy out of the game. It's That's more satisfying than a touchdown sometimes.
I hate like the pass, and you throw the ball, and you need you're rolling the D20 and you're rolling in the D6. You're like, all I need is 12. I can clearly roll a 12 between, but I got 26. I can clear, and you roll like 5, and you're like, how? The red die comes up a 1, and you're like, really, a 1?
It's any game that has the range of emotions that it pulls out that battle ball does. I'm down for that game.
So I usually ask about a hidden gem or a guilty pleasure, but I really, unless you have something else, Battle Ball is like the best.
Yeah, battle ball fits both of those, and I mentioned real briefly Heroescape before, which was going to be
Oh
my other
yeah.
one. I have far too much Heroescape downstairs, and still love that game. I like setting it up. The only thing I don't like is tearing it down, but setting it up and playing it, Heroescape is fantastic, and one of those games that came along at exactly the right time because these days it would be a $250 game on Kickstarter. But at the time, it was like a $30-$40 game at Toys R Us.
It's
And
amazing what what scalability can do, right?
right,
I mean, yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like these games, like Awaken Realms, likes to put out these highly detailed miniatures, and they make these big miniatures, small miniatures. They're all highly detailed, and their games are like $300.
yeah, they're gorgeous, but
Yeah, but
a
they're
lot
three
of
hundred
bucks.
dollars. But then, like you said, like HeroScape was like $35 20 years ago. Well, geez, 25, 30 years ago, because yeah, we're old, and that's what happens to time.
It is. Let's see. Heroescape was 2004.
Oh, okay, it's not as old as I thought. Okay, all right. So, but it's still 15.
Yeah,
It's still 15 years ago,
yeah,
and yeah. So, but yeah, well, like Battle Ball, we were talking earlier, like $20. The game has 22 highly detailed, fully painted miniatures, a metal football,
yeah,
and this gigantic puzzle board field, and $20. Like that's insane.
yeah.
Like you can't do that these days without the backing of Hasbro, to where you're like ordering 2 million copies. Yeah, we'll sell 2 million copies.
Yeah, yeah. Even Hasbro, I think that the prices at the factories in China have gone up significantly over the past 15 years, and not even talking about the current shipping situation and distribution situation that everybody's kind of suffering through. But yeah, you're right. That scalability, I tell my friends who still aren't really well versed in the gaming hobby, they said, like, I'm going away next week. I'm going to be at a board game convention. What the hell are you talking about, Eric? And I tell them And I explained to him about how the internet has changed things, because it used to be that to have a hit in the board game world, you had to be in Toys R Us, you had to be in mass market stores, which really meant Hasbro, Mattel, or a very small number of independent companies. And nowadays, a game publisher, a small publisher, can have something that is profitable, at least, or at least doesn't lose money, with 5,000 to 50,000 copies. For some publishers, 50,000 copies would be a wild hit, but the only way to make that work on the distribution level is with the internet. So,
Yeah. So you mentioned Kickstarter earlier. Are you a backer?
Yeah, I back games on Kickstarter with some regularity. I tend to go through waves, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because your wife starts yelling at you, but they start showing up and it starts hitting the credit card, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So
yeah,
you
exactly right.
turn it down.
I'll make I'll call it a mistake. It's not really a mistake, but I'll make the mistake of backing one on Kickstarter. And then I'll start browsing around, seeing what else is out there. And I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. Let's see what people have said about that. And before you know it, you've backed 5 more games. So
I think right now I only have one active one still going.
Okay.
But I've got about, I don't know, 12 that aren't here yet.
I'm not quite in that situation. I ordered basically, I think, everything that you could with the Marvel United game, and then they had different shipping options, and I said, wait until it's all together and ship it to me. And so I got that, and that's the last really big one that I have received from Kickstarter. My problem is I order them and it's fun. The campaigns are great. I enjoy watching everything rack up, all of the add-ons, all of the bonuses, all that stuff. And then I forget about it, and then all of a sudden I get shipping notices, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what the heck that's going to be. And then this big box shows up at my house, and I'm like, oh, now I need space for this.
Yeah, I was joking with one of my other friends. He's also a big Kickstarter backer. And I think the only thing that's really starting to drive me nuts now is like you'll just get a notification. Here's a tracking number.
Yeah.
Well, what for what? And
Right.
it's like it's UPS. It'll be there Thursday. Well, I don't be here Thursday. Do I need to warn my wife that like here's a tracking number? Great, So yeah, and I've got it into doing board game reviews for a friend's website, and so I get prototypes, and then we get that's the payment for it is you get the production copy when it's done,
right?
And so I'm like, oh, all these games are showing up for free, and I'm like, yeah, it seems like a good idea to get like a stack of free ones that I have. I'm like, oh man, I still got to play that one and that one and that one.
I had at the peak of my collection, I was somewhere north of 1,000 games, which is, for me, look, if you're totally into it and you want to make the space for it, great. God bless you. Please invite me to your house. I want to be your friend. But for me, it's just too much. So I spent a long time when we moved paring down my collection, donated a lot to thrift stores through the areas. I put up a couple of geek lists where people who were nearby could actually track what I was dropping off and when, in case they wanted any. I sold a lot through the geek market on Board Game Geek, through some local gaming events and stuff like that. So now I'm down to, I think I'm under 250 games, but basically what I have now is this wall of shelves. That's how many games I'm allowed to have. A self-imposed limit, this wall, nothing more. There are exceptions. HeroScape does not count toward that limit.
Obviously. You got it. It's like everything. There's got to be exceptions to the rule.
Right. And look, the HeroScape exception should go without saying, but
my buddy, he had so much. He had like a whole room, right? It was game room. It was just there's basically like a converted garage into
Yeah.
a game room. And when he outgrew the game room, he decided to open a game shop. And now all the games he has became his library that you come in and play. And then he has a store that you can buy games from as well. So I'm trying to convince my wife that that's what I'm doing is I'm building a library and I'm going to open a store.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I have found that it hasn't slowed down the acquisition of games. It just forces me to make difficult decisions about what is coming off of the shelf. Um,
Or you just find a bigger wall.
yeah, that's true. Right, I can shift it. It's no longer this wall. Now it's this wall over here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
This
twice
wall's
as
big. This
long.
wall. Who needs a door? I'll just put games in there. I'll climb
I'm
out the
going.
window.
I'm going to IKEA, honey. I need more Calyx shelves. You want
Yeah.
anything?
Well, like I've got mine downstairs and it's full, obviously, and stacked on top as high as can be, and then up here, so my game table is like right on the other side of where I am right now. But I decided to hang. I got all my IKEA shelves where I put all like the smaller games and stuff like that, and
Yep.
other nerd stuff. But I'm like, I got more over here you can't see, and I got more over here, and but but like you said, thrift shops right now they are ripe with this stuff.
Oh yeah.
People like you that and me, like I got rid of a handful of games that I'm like I'm never going to play this game again.
Yeah. And with shipping costs being what they are, like I said, I got rid of a lot through the geek market, and I did, but the shipping costs are just brutal these days. So it just makes so much more sense to anything that's sort of middle of the road or lower, go into the thrift store, and even some really good games have gone to my local thrift stores.
I live a little too far away to go benefit from that. But I'll tell you, I mean, I've been using Facebook Marketplace to both get rid of games and acquire new games. I've used Craigslist for both. I haven't had a lot of luck selling games on Craigslist as much as I've had success finding new games on Craigslist.
Nice.
But anyway, your book, How to Host a Game Night. I want to touch on a few things in it that really stuck out to me. The bit on group dynamics and trying the interpersonal dynamics and watching out for bad bad combinations, dealing with that one guy, that one player. I like that whole section on it, and then just like I said earlier, just how you broke it down based on player count and length. And so I think I did mine I usually fall right between the small group of 3 to 6 and the large group of 7 to 10. I've never passed 10.
Yep.
But we will get a good, even when I was at my old job, we would have lunchtime where we'd have 7 or 8 people, and we're trying to find a game that we could fit in a lunch hour with 7 or 8 people. And we usually defaulted to Bang or Seven Wonders or something like that, where you could have a lot of players.
Yep.
But yeah, and then a game weekend. How do you set it up? Snacks, food, beverages.
Yeah, lots of fun to do. A lot of planning goes into a good game weekend, but with Airbnb and services like that, so many great options out there now that didn't exist even a couple of years ago, really. And just one of my favorite things is a weekend getaway with some friends, playing a bunch of games, doing other stuff too, but just hard to beat it. Very relaxing and really recharges your batteries. It's great fun.
Absolutely. Mine was 2 weeks ago, and we had an Airbnb on the other side of the park. So it's just like a mile as the crow flies, but I had to go around the park. And we played games till we fell asleep Friday night. We woke up Saturday, played a couple games, went out, hit up the game shops.
That's perfect. That's a perfect weekend right there.
And then we came back and played more games until midnight. I mean, I think, the other thing that was in your book that was also good was knowing your audience, know who's there and what kind of games they play.
Yeah.
Because I will play any game once.
Ditto.
I say that, but I can look at a game sometimes and be like,
Uh,
this thing says it's a 6-hour playtime. That's not me.
no, that's true. That's not me either. And I've been to the World Board Gaming Championships enough to know that if I see guys out there using tweezers to move small cardboard squares, I need to run the other way. I respect them. I respect them a lot. I just don't want to join them.
And so, yeah, if you're out there with tweezers moving the cardboard chits around the old Avalon Hill, I'd pass.
Yeah.
Where's the Monopoly board?
Yeah, I had so much fun putting the book together, and I'm really thrilled that you enjoyed it and appreciated it. The best part was, there's a lot of stories in there, some from my personal experience, but I talked to so many gamers, and some of it was by email, some of it was messages on Board Game Geek forums, some of it was in all sorts of different ways. But just the great fun. I hope I got across the great fun that everybody I talked to has playing board games. It was just great fun to write the book. I hope that comes across.
Oh, I loved it. I always joke that I read at the level of a college graduate at the speed of an 8-year-old. I don't read very fast. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I did. I flew through this book. I found lately that board game books, I just blow right through them, just right through them. Your book was no exception. I got through it so fast, and then I spent time tracking down a copy of Battleball. So it's so funny to me how, being in the community, how you can come across the weirdest games in the weirdest ways, right?
Yeah.
And, I came across Battleball reading a book about how to host a game night. And I've thrown game nights all the time, but I'm like, I want to read this book because why not? And, at my old office, we'd go game nights and we'd have pizza, and we called it pizza, pop, and popcorn and games. And so we would have, all this stuff going on, and 20 people. And in one night, they'd all branch out and play games. And, I'm like, I've thrown game nights, but I'm like, you know what, though? I kind of want to read this book anyway. And then you think you have things there I didn't think about, like, having to deal with that problem guy and making sure you have games that, that everybody wants to play, and the difference between a game night and a game weekend, and, like I do lunchtime gaming, like there's whole different dynamics to all of that.
Yeah, every situation is different, and that's some of my friends, good natured ribbing, how to host a game night. Why do I need a whole book about that? But I say, look, just read through it. It's more than that too. It's game reviews, it's stories, it's fun, it's some reminiscing. It's some craziness with hopefully some very practical tips that you have not thought of yet included as well. But yeah, it was just so much fun writing it. It's such a great hobby, and very happy to hopefully contribute a little bit to it.
So how did you get into gaming? Always been a gamer?
Always been a gamer. Grew up playing games. I still have my dad's, I forget what year it was, but Winning Moves did a retro version of Risk that was exactly the version my dad had, like 1960 something. So even before I was old enough to play Risk, I would open the box and use the little, they were basically plastic rectangular cubes. And I would use them to just like build things. But yeah, I grew up playing board games like Connect Four. I have a sister who's about 18 months younger than me. We played games like Connect Four, and I'm sure we knocked over the plastic board of Connect Four about as often as we finished a game peacefully. But what I remember most growing up is playing Trivial Pursuit. because it would always be Dad versus me, my mom, and my sister. And Dad would always win, and drove my mom nuts. She would hit him in the arm every single time and say, "Dah," And but Dad was a trivia savant, and it was just great fun. And then when I went to college, that's when I started sort of learning more about different games. I started playing. We played euchre a lot and Risk a lot. But
where'd you go to college?
Temple University in Philadelphia.
Okay, it was like euchre is such a Midwestern game.
Yeah, I don't know why my roommates, they're both from north of Philadelphia, basically. And I don't know why they knew it, but they taught it to the rest of us. And we played it all the time. I had no idea back then that it had Midwestern roots, but my dad
man.
Yeah, it's a great trick-taking game. Great trick-taking game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's awesome. And I grew up playing it. My mom's side of the family plays it. My dad's side of the family plays it. I play it. My sister plays it. My brother, nope. My wife, nope. Funny. My wife won't play it. So my brother and my wife sit over on the couch like, they're not going to play euchre. But it's so funny when I hear people that say euchre because it's such a Midwestern game. And, oh, man. So have you ever played Rook?
Oh yeah, I'm glad you said it. Yeah, my mom always had a Rook set, and we definitely played that around the house.
Man, I kind of got into Rook because I read a book, and it was talking about all the old games that George Parker created himself, and I was like, Rook, I think my parents had that, and we never played it, and so I bought a deck from Walmart for like $4 or something.
Yeah.
And I put the app on my phone and just started playing it, and I had to get euchre out of my mind because it's not about how many tricks you take. It's about taking the right tricks. It's about feeding points to your partner.
Yeah.
It's about, and so once I got past all my euchre roots, which are very deep roots, then I'm like, I got better at Rook. But yeah, like Rook is it's such an old game. I mean, what was 1904 or something like that? And I'm like, holy cow. So I've been playing a lot of Rook lately on my phone.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool. Yeah, Mom had Rook around. Mom and Dad hosted Bridge Night with their friends a lot. And I, in middle school, joined the Bridge Club. So, I was cool. I was cool. And I couldn't play bridge today to save my life. I don't remember anything about it. But Mom and Dad, I think it was about once a month, they would set up 2 card tables in our living room and 8 folding chairs, and 6 friends would come over and they'd have bridge night. Peanuts and the foulest tasting candies that anybody ever saw, but they ate them.
I bet you those are the ones my wife loves. All those old nasty things.
Like powdery kind of.
Yeah. Oh, things. Gross. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I think that's why Mom bought them, because she knew that Lisa and I wouldn't eat them.
Well, if I buy these, the kids will leave them alone. Yeah, but you still have to eat them, so the joke's on you. My parents hosted euchre nights when we were kids. And so there was a group of 8 of them, or 4 couples. And they would go around each other's houses and, make a night of playing euchre. But yeah, bridge is one of the games that I've wanted to teach myself. I haven't found the time to teach myself bridge yet. I did teach myself cribbage.
Mm-hmm.
I taught my son, who's 9, how to play cribbage.
Nice.
Yeah, if you ever want to get, humbled real quick, my son will do that for you. Oh, man, he's really big into chess. And we were playing Battleball, and he started using his chess theories. And it's like, dude, this isn't even fun anymore. He'll just take the heavy tackle and go right after yours. And his whole theory is, well, if we both roll 2s, then we both don't have the heavy tackle, and oh well. And I'm like, but I don't want to lose the heavy tackles. But it's like in chess. If I take out your queen with my queen, and then you take my queen, neither one of us have a queen. And I'm like, but I like the heavy tackle, And it's so I I've never shown him real, never been like the mercy dad. Like I don't let him win.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's now when we play games, it's a knockdown drag out. If he wins, he wins. Like we were just playing what was that little game? Micro Dojo. A Kickstarter I backed. The idea behind it was awesome. He made a game that like fit into like a shipping envelope.
Mm-hmm.
And very flat, just one piece of cardboard punch out with a flat rule book, and boop, shipped it right to you. And it was like $3 or $5 or something. And we were playing, we got going, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think I can win this. He goes, nope. And I can't either, Dad. We're in a stalemate. And I'm like, how long have we been in a stalemate? He's like, oh, a while. And I'm like, why did you say like why did you say something? Because I know it's bedtime once the game was over, so we just kept playing. I'm like, oh,
Your kid is going to do something big in the world, man. That's awesome.
Maybe just he'll design the next game, one of the it games for the month or whatever. But yeah, it was funny. I'm like, well, why did you say something? Well, then I'd have to go to bed, and I didn't want to go to bed. I don't know how you argue with that,
Impeccable logic.
Yeah, kids' logic sometimes, right?
Yep.
Oh man, but yeah. So I got my daughter. She'll be 3 coming up soon, and so she's already rolling dice and playing cards, and they play Candyland and Hoot Owl Hoot, and he's trying to teach her like Formula D, and I'm like, okay, man, she's not even 3, buddy. And he's like, yeah, but I just want her to play so we can play together. And I'm like, okay. I mean, if she gets the hang of that game, I'm really in trouble because she's not even 3. So,
yeah, I remember playing games with our niece and nephew when they were younger. Maybe 5 or 6, and we played a couple of memory-based games with them and got humiliated. My brain is, basically like a colander, and
yeah.
But their brains keep everything in them, so they were destroying us.
The steel trap versus the steel sieve.
Yes, exactly right.
If it's big enough, it sticks, but if it doesn't, it goes right through. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Kids are hilarious, and my kids. It's been a lot of fun playing games with them and everything, but we'll see what happens as they get older.
Yeah.
We usually play games at night. I got a lot of 2-player games because it's just a lot of time just my son and I will be playing while my wife's trying to get the daughter to bed. But we've got some games that we can try to calm the wife into playing. Like, you want to play this game. Come on. So we've dug out some old, because of those books. Millborn.
Oh yeah.
Never heard of it. Then we got it, and it went from like a game that we just picked up to the 3rd most played game in my app. So I've been tracking my gaming.
Awesome.
Because you can tell I'm cool. It went from like a game that we've never played to the 3rd most played game in my app just over a course of like 8 months.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, that's that's the Rook, Millborn. Some of those games that were designed back then, many of the games designed back then are pretty much, unless you're scouring the Geek or old eBay auctions, they're lost to history, and that's because they weren't fun to play. But some of them stuck around, and they're fun to play.
The number 1 game on my list to find right now is Acquire.
Oh.
I can't find it anywhere. I've never played it. It's in every book.
I'm not going to tell you that I have 2 copies downstairs then. And that doesn't include the really nice Hasbro Wizards of the Coast edition that I got rid of.
I have some of those old 3M books, like
Yeah,
from the 60s.
that's one of
The
my
original,
acquires.
yeah, the original Sid Saxon Acquire. I've got Feudal, and Feudal's great.
I've never played
Um,
Feudal. Cool.
oh, it's a lot of fun. And I think I came across that on a podcast I was listening to. I should not be allowed anywhere close to anything talking about board games because it just costs me money. But I got Feudal, and it came with another one called like Breakout, and that one's kind of dumb.
Okay.
But the Feudal's all right, and then I'm like, and the Twixt, and I'm like, I want to get that, and
Yeah.
but then like Acquires in like every game book, and
I've got one that's it's a word game. I'm drawing a blank on the title right now, but it's in that 3M bookshelf bookcase series, and it's a word game. Anyway, it's on my pile of games that. So now, given my my rule about the shelf is all I'm allowed to have, I have a set of games where I need to play them once before I decide for sure that they're going to hit the road, and that's currently in that pile.
the Shelf of Shame.
Kind of. Well, yes, the Shelf of Shame in that I've owned these games and never played them. So absolutely. But I also have I have like old some old James Bond games, some old Sherlock Holmes games, stuff like that, which I know once I play them once, that's enough. You can just tell from the that how old they are, who the publisher was, and what the box cover looks like. I bought them because I thought there was potentially something unique and interesting in them, and I will play them, and there won't be, and then we'll move on.
I think your keyword there was who the publisher was.
Yes. Yeah.
They're no longer around.
Right.
Nobody picked up their IP because they don't want it.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, though, between Restoration Games and Winning Moves, man, they're doing a killer job keeping some of these older titles around. Like you can still get a copy of Touring through Winning Moves,
Yeah,
and which is the game before Millborn, and but yeah, it just it's those games are the ones that are still around, still coming back, and they're fantastic because they're solid games. 120 years old.
No, you're absolutely right, and sometimes we talked about Hero Quest earlier, and I know Hasbro recently did a kind of Kickstarter, but it wasn't on Kickstarter version. That was essentially, it's as I recall it and as I understand it, it's basically a redo, basically the same game of Hero Quest, which is cool, and there's nostalgia there and stuff. But man, I would love for Restoration Games. Man, I would love for them just to get their hands on that. Anything they do, Rob Davio and Justin Jacobson. They just like they have a magic touch when it comes to making games that Erik Arneson likes anyway.
I'll tell you, Downforce is my jam.
Yeah.
That game is my jam. I mean, Wolfgang Kramer is amazing.
Yeah.
And Downforce, I love it.
Yeah.
And can't get enough of that game.
Ditto. It's I've got all the maps. It's absolutely fantastic. They did a great job putting out like the definitive edition of a game that's had a bunch of versions. And
like 6, I think it was, or 4. I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot. And I really learned to love Board Game Arena during the pandemic. And when Downforce showed up on Board Game Arena, that was a happy day.
Oh man, yeah, and the last set of tracks when they introduced the ramps, I'm like, I love it, but you're way off theme here. Now, have you seen the Mario Kart Monopoly Mario Kart Gamer?
No.
And it comes with little, so it's Monopoly and it's trash. But the cars that come with it are the same size as the Downforce cars.
Touchdown.
And
That's awesome.
and you can buy up all the expansions, which are just more cars. You'll spend more money on Bowser than everything else combined, but it's worth it because you need the orange car. And then people have created rules where you combine downforce with the Monopoly game, and you use like the coins and the die, and then you set it so it's like Mario Kart. So like I have the opaque D6s, and you set them out across the board, and you run into them like mystery boxes of Mario Kart. And I mean, and you play Downforce at the same time that you're playing with these Monopoly. Oh my gosh, it's
Wow.
like this was a missed opportunity. But I came across Milbourne in France. They have a Mario Kart Milbourne.
Wow. That's cool.
And I'm like, I want it, but I cannot justify $80.
Mm-hmm.
Not when I can go. I not when I can go pick up a copy of Milbourne for $5 at the consignment shop.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's I lucked into, boy, I forget now even what game it was based on, but a Star Wars game that was only produced in Germany. And I kept looking at it, and I'm like, man, I'd like that, but it's ridiculous. I can't spend that much money. And then I was at some game event, and there was like a flea market kind of setup, and somebody had it, and I happened to get to that table early, and it was only like $40 instead of $140, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a card game. There's no way that it's worth anything like $40, but I'm all in at that price.
Well, it's like the Carcassonne, the Star Wars Carcassonne.
Oh yeah,
Remember, that was such a small print run,
yep,
and it's my buddy's a big Star Wars fan, and I got it for him. It's all right, but I'm like, now you could sell that for $100. It's like it's a game of Carcassonne.
yeah,
It is not worth $100. It is
yeah.
not worth $100.
Yeah, it's amazing what foreign editions can, where they don't have the rights for English language or for the United States or whatever they don't have the rights for, but they can do cool stuff, and then all of a sudden we all want it.
Yeah. Well, it's like people when they go, they would at my old job. He would travel, and he would always pick me up a copy of Catan in that language.
Oh, cool.
So I've got like Japanese Catan, I've got Romanian Catan, and it's you don't even. But Catan is so visual, you don't even need the. I know how to play the game, so
Yep.
I can play it, and I got all the cool pieces that are the Japanese pieces are different than the U.S. release, and it's crazy.
Have you ever played Trome Fabrique? It's
No.
It's a Reiner Knizia auction game based on Hollywood, and it was published by Hasbro, but it was published by Hasbro Germany, which is why it's called Trome Fabrique. It means Dream Factory. And in Germany, for whatever reason, I don't understand the rules, but in Germany they could use real people. So it's got like Alfred Hitchcock, and there's John Ford. There's 4 directors, and then a whole bunch of classic actors and actresses, all this and that. And they just had a new version come out that I think is called Hollywood Golden Age, which was produced, if I'm not mistaken, in Spain. And I happened to notice it in the Board Game Geek store one day, and I immediately bought it. And then I emailed about 4 friends who I know also love this game, and they all got it too, because I know my Trome Fabrique is going to get worn out someday because I play it so often. But it's because it's Spanish. It has classic actors and actresses. It's got a whole different set, not entirely different, but a bunch of different ones in there too. Like the new one has Audrey Hepburn, the old one doesn't. But anyway, those foreign editions sometimes are just too tempting.
Well, it's funny you say that because one of the games that was Alan R. Moon's 10 Days in the USA,
Oh, yeah.
and that game is fantastic. And the only place I could find it was on the Board Game Geek store, and it was on sale and all this stuff. I paid like $20 for it, but when you get it in, it's in Chinese first, and then in English second. But once you read the rules, the game's all visual anyway. And so, but it's like, how does a game like that, to find an old edition, it's all in English, is like $50. I'm like, mine can have Chinese and then say Colorado. I don't care,
Right. Right.
And the map is just the map of the United States. I know the map. I know the United States. So,
and it's always fascinating what games reach that status too. Like 10 Days in the USA, great game. I've got it. I like it. I play it. But when it came out, it was easy to find. Like there was no short. But then I don't know what the print run was, but the prices skyrocketed.
Yeah, it's like I always joke that Z-Man, they are the most frustrating like distributor or manufacturer, because everything they do is like, what's the minimum I can do for that? Okay, let's do a minimum plus one. Like Stone Age. Like they run a print run of Stone Age like every 2 years, and what do they run, like 5,000 copies? It's like, so you got to grab it when it's out for like $60, otherwise it's $150 because it's out of print. I'm like, next time I see it, I'm going to grab 2 copies, one for me, one to wait, and then sell it.
Yep. Yeah, the secondary market for games is a fascinating economic study waiting to happen.
Oh, absolutely. I've been on a kick right now of collecting Clue games that are different than just regular Clue.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like not some IP slapped on it, but like Clue, and then Clue Master Detective. So it's the bigger board, the more characters, the more poison, or the more weapons, the more rooms. So I've got a bunch of different Clue. I'm trying to find the museum caper where they had like the plastic museum and like the art pieces and stuff like that. But I'm like, I'm not spending $70 on a game of Clue. I am just not doing that.
I used to work somewhere different, and in that job I traveled a lot more than I do now. And I would always try and stop at thrift stores. And so I lucked into my copy of The Great Museum Caper. It was like $5 or something, and pretty damn near complete. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're doing that. So
yeah, well, I got the Secrets and Spies edition, brand new, and the cards don't work. The blacklight, it doesn't shine. Nothing's on them.
Bummer.
Go to eBay and you can find just the deck of cards for $5. I'm like, I guess I'm buying this deck of cards for $5.
Yep.
But like the game came shrink wrapped, and I had to punch out all the chits, and the cards were all in their wrapper, and I unwrapped them, and then I put the light. There's nothing there. They're blank. It's like, can they go bad?
That sounds like bad printing more than anything. But yeah.
I know. All right, well, Eric, I'm going to let you go. I feel like we could talk all night if if we could. But I really appreciate you coming on my show, even if you're a Packers fan. You're not my first Packers fan either, sadly. I need to find non-Packers fans. I want to thank you for coming on the show, writing such a great book. I highly recommend this book, How to Host a Game Night. You can get it pretty much anywhere you can find a book. And of course, I want to thank you for introducing me to Battleball.
One of my greatest accomplishments in life. Adam, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I can't wait till we can meet in person someday. Play Battleball, play a lot more games.
Oh, yeah. Get out here to Geekway some weekend. Maybe not this year, but next year. I'll supply the Battleball. I've got 2 copies.
That's a deal. I'm there.
So if anybody want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
So I'm easy to find on Twitter at Erik Board Games. It's ERIK, Erik Board Games. And my website is Erik Arneson, ERIKARNESON.com.
Well, I will come find you on Twitter. I have not done that yet, so I will do that later this evening. And if you want to reach out to me, it's facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame. Email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Stay Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3cmedia and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.